So Popper 22, I have a great story I have to tell you before we
Oh my god, tell me.
go. So, okay, this study, I remember when I learned it, it was, oh my gosh, crazy. This is totally going to give everyone my exact age. But it was 2004, and I was a senior in high school, and it was after I finished all of my auditions for music school. So this would have been around this time of year, probably a little later, April or something.
Yeah.
But it was the year of the cicadas, which in the U.S., on the East Coast. Do you know about those? Were you there?
This is so weird. Was I there? Because I was there for a year of cicadas in Indiana. Is that where you were?
Were you there in the summer? Summer?
Yeah, summer session in Indiana. We weren't there at the same time, were we?
No, that would have been the summer, but right before I started.
Oh my god.
But you know,
insane.
so it's crazy. It was my senior year of high school. I was learning how to drive, and there were boom, 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 cicadas everywhere. Anyway, guess what? This year is the year of the cicada. It's every 17 years. And it's this year.
17 years?
I know, since I was a senior in high school.
I cannot believe that I was in Indiana 17 years ago and you were there at the same time. So, should we explain to people what a cicada is?
Yes, okay. Because, people don't know. You explain it. I want to hear the Irish description of cicadas.
Basically, I had no idea what a cicada was. I rocked up to Indiana and there were all these dead insects all over the ground. And I was like, what? Like, are we in a plague? And people were like, yes, we are in a plague. And then, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. We were playing the Mozart string quartet, the name is killing me, Dissonance.
Yes.
Mozart Dissonance Quartet. It starts like so quietly and it's all like, like what, I can't even remember the first chords of it. So we went into a concert, string quartet were playing this, and there was a guy at the door who would de-cicada everyone because cicadas make this really loud noise. What does it sound like? Can't remember. It's like
bzz, bzz. It's like a really loud buzz.
But it's like a really high pitch or something like something really bizarre. And so there was a guy at the door whose job it was to take cicadas out of people's coats and hairs because as you were walking around Indiana, there'd be swarms of cicadas. It's like the maddest thing you'd ever experienced. And for anyone who doesn't like creepy crawlies...
Yeah. You're going to get over them if you experience that. I mean, because they're blind, so they just run into you. And
which is, keep your mouth shut. That was a lesson I learned. Keep your mouth shut. But anyway, so we're there in this concert. Your man takes out, so all the audience members takes it off. This is grand. And in the warm-up room, we were there and suddenly we heard zzz, zzz, and we were all like, oh god, where is it? Like, could you imagine if that happened at the concert? Ha ha ha. And we were like, just can anyone find? No, it must have been outside. Fine. We go on stage and we start. The loudest noise, and we tried to not start laughing and also keep going like all good performers should. And eventually the organizer of the concert series said, sorry, we're just going to stop and interrupt you there. We need to find the cicada. And it turns out one of them was under the netting of the skirt of the first violin player. So he literally had to just roll up layer after layer it was one of these concert skirts. Found a cicada, brought it outside, round of applause, and then we had to start the quartet again. It was like the maddest thing. I was from Ireland going like, what is this?
That must have been crazy. I mean, so here's the thing, right? Like, on the East Coast, there's cicadas like every year, but they're like normal cicadas that aren't blind. And there's not like a billion of them. There's like a few in the trees. So that's a sound you hear at night when you're like sitting outside. But they're not the blind, stupid, like 17-year cicadas, so they don't fly on you and stuff. Like, and you might occasionally...
Big. Yeah.
Yeah, you might like occasionally see a dead one, but you'd hear that sound. Like, you'd be familiar with that sound from afar, like if you're outside at a evening something.
God.
Anyway, it's a interesting full circle, because this year is the year of the cicada, so they'll be coming soon, and I was playing
God
this the
help
last
everyone
time.
in Indiana.
I know.
That's a shock. Hey, I'm going to study cello in Indiana, and what is happening here? Enjoy, practice a lot, you'll be inside.
When you drive down the road, it sounds like popcorn. That's how many cicadas there are. Anyway.
So disgusting. I'm glad we brought this to the lovely people who are watching our videos.
Yes,
good
it's
story to know.
educational in all ways. So,
Yeah, exactly.
hey. So Popper 22, Alva, tell me, what did you think of Popper 22?
Oh, it's just so pretty, isn't it? This is
It is.
such a lovely piece of work. Well done, Popper.
Yeah.
And even though he is actually teaching us lovely things, I think, you know, he managed to do it in a way that feels beautiful. There's some gorgeous shifts and leaps here that just make you want to sing on the instrument. So that was great. I think for me, obviously you need to think about the bow distribution for how you get through the first 3 beats of the bar and then the last one. So I tend to just save a lot. So because I'm a lazy cellist, so I don't have to go back as far if I actually save a little bit more here. Very interesting things about having to shift up for that kind of shift. That's a classic Alva head movement place.
Oh yeah, of course.
But also I noticed for me, actually getting there, move, that you have to be in transit already by the time that you're playing go. If you're not, it's too hard to do it within the phrase. It's all a legato phrasing, right? So I found that happened a lot within the piece, that I had to engage movement earlier than I thought while still playing. This kind of shifting idea.
Say the bow distribution thing. What I found when I was practicing this is that also because of the phrasing, it's so tempting to just like hang out on that single note. It's so tempting to just put a little pause on the end of each of those to facilitate the bow distribution. But really, it probably, not that you might not choose to do a few of them like that, but to really either use you have to either compensate with the bow's speed or, as you've said, using less bow. I mean, you'd still...
Yeah. I definitely did way less weight on it, so I could just really move quite fast, no matter where I ended up. And I also, as I was playing it through the week, I noticed, like you said, it makes loads of sense to go. Like, it's so beautiful, isn't it? But then all these connections, and then suddenly, how do you actually time that pitch?
Yes.
And every time it has to be really, really coordinated, right?
Yes, it does.
So coming even from, you know, that part where it goes... That's a tricky little corner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can't release the weight too early in the left hand, or else you ruin the end of this. You know. It's just... I love those little corners. And I found bar 3... that if you waited too long on that low E, you ruined the whole first 4-bar phrase. I did the wrong bowing there, but I really just wanted the phrase to go. And start again.
I mean, you actually demonstrated beautifully the phrase with the wrong bowing. You know, it's one of those moments, you know, when you're doing a Brahms symphony and it's like, try the original bowing in the beginning of the second movement of Brahms too. You know, it's one of those things what you just did.
Exactly. Try it every way and see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, I think you've brought up a great point. I was thinking a lot about how, I mean, really, I think in many ways this study is all about the bow and the legato and bow control distribution stuff. I mean, I think the timbre as well, when you're crossing strings, like, you know, like this passage we have near the end. That whole thing. Can you get the sound really even and really legato? Sorry, I'm playing it like not very well, but
I know exactly what you mean,
that stuff. And I think what you've suggested too, just in your demonstration of those separate notes, I mean, that was the next thing I was going to ask is, you know, you really kind of have a choice on these. You don't have to play with legato. You can lift the bow. Because he doesn't write one way or the other. He doesn't write legato. But I think it's a missed opportunity to practice, you know, those connections when you decide to lift. So
Big time. And
I-
the coordination to start the next. So all those links, every single time they happen. How do you get the weight back onto the finger for the next one without losing or changing the weight somewhere else?
yeah.
So you don't want to cut off the last note just to get a good start. It just has to be the perfect combination.
Yeah.
weight
So
transfer.
what do you do to practice that?
So I found a really fascinating area. So let's say we have bar 9. So here, so for me, because I don't usually use too much fourth finger in my day to day, but I'm loving the fact that Popper is making me use it a lot more, because I have developed a kind of fourth finger usable feature.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would. I always was able to use my fourth finger, but I'm not sure if I was
Yeah.
playing a concerto, would I actually finish that with. Maybe I would, but the transfer, finish. I found all those notes quite entertaining because they're quite high, so obviously you don't want to have too much, it's too scratchy, so it's back to that classic really silvery lining and not too much vibrato, because obviously sounds like an old woman warbling.
Yeah. It's so easy when you get there to just like hang out and be like, whew. So
Yeah.
resisting the urge to do that. Other place like that I thought was. I noticed when I practiced and I got to that note, I'd always.
Yeah. So, but
Now-
funny enough, is that wrong?
Well, I'm not sure it's Andante Grazioso. It's like very. Whoa.
I was laughing because we had a similar thing like this in a previous week where you were like, I'm going for it, because you went for it. And so I actually laughed and I tried, like, you know. Or do you put, for me actually, because there's no harmonic on this version there in that note, right?
Yes, I guess not, yeah.
So I actually put my thumb behind. I noticed the vibrato quality was just much better when I did.
Oh my gosh.
I just noticed,
That-
you know, the tiny bit of stability.
Starker
See-
was so into that, he called it the 20th century thumb position. But I have to say,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever used it in performance.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
the thumb behind thing.
Yeah,
You
I
probably
just
have
noticed
because you've played lots of hard, crazy stuff. I'm totally
Yeah,
going to
it's-
practice that.
just fascinating because, you know, anything that you just use one finger is always has the potential to be slightly wild sounding. So as soon as you have a support, you've just a bit more.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. I think I decided in the end I'd love to have a fluty sound, like a soft piccolo kind of.
Yeah, you're nailing it.
Yeah, I mean,
Sounded
talk to
very
me about-
fluty.
Well, excellent. I'm glad that transferred. The question is, can you reach that sound when you're mad going? You know, like you don't want to get the extra, oh, I made it sound with the bow, you know, where you're
Oh
so
yeah,
keeping calm.
it's such refined playing up there that, you know, like I found like, okay, I was really in my practice really trying to hit those notes, but the feeling in the bow has to be so precise but so controlled, so it's like
Big time.
yeah, a very delicate thing. I mean, I think lots of slow practice is really the best way to find those really delicate differences in color and stuff.
Yeah, I also loved the rhythmic practice for that bit because
Oh right.
I would find, so the slow practice, totally agree. You need to find exactly where your shapes are and all of those things that you can reach it every time. But then the question of me being able to remember from Popper 40 that it was like pianistic playing, you know, where everything
Yeah.
has to transfer. And then can I do it at the speed that it's supposed to be in? You know, it's
Yeah,
really quite fast when you get there. So
it really is. I might be taking a bit of artistic license in that moment. We'll see.
well, there's absolutely nothing stopping us, because that is a beautiful moment. If you were to play that in a concert, you certainly would make everyone draw in
Absolutely.
and listen to this
Yeah.
beautiful moment.
I mean, I think another interesting thing about this study is just, you know, there's a lot of this. We haven't talked that much about vibrato in these studies, maybe in 34, but this is one that, even though it's like a semi-quavery one, I really did think about vibrato on some of the notes anyway, like which notes you want to bring out, especially when it gets chromatic and there's some, you know, juicier bits. Something like that. So there is, I think there is license in this to take some time to create those musical
100%.
parts. I mean, as there always is, but perhaps this invites it more.
Yeah, no, I think
Let's
you're
say.
dead right. And I think as well, like even places where you've got that shift at the beginning. So I did notice, because I just loved it so much, I was shifting. So at the end of the oboe, were you doing it at the end of the oboe or the beginning of the new one?
Usually end of the old. I was trying to vary them sometimes.
Ooh, fancy! I like it. I was trying to give myself a actual directive, or else, you know me, I would end up going. You know.
Oh, I love it.
So, for me, I found after I got there, I'd be like, oh, how lovely, that I did again, just way too wide for the sound that we're actually in at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to be quite careful that the speed of the vibrato was just a little bit tighter and faster, rather than wider and fast. You know, just slightly more within that. So then it led on. You know, and still stays within the character that you're in.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you're bringing up such good points, because I think in some ways, even though it is beautifully expressive, this one, Popper is so smart to, you know, title it Andante Grazioso, because it challenges you as a player so much more, I think, to play this in a grazioso style and color, you know, that lightness with that contact and legato. I was going to ask, though, like, when the moments when it's dynamically louder, I mean, did you find, I found in some moments you do struggle with the string crossing to get that consistency of sound with more intensity. I'm trying to think of a good
like
moment.
Especially here, because I would never end up in a longbow, but you know, that's 39, is it?
Yeah, that's a good.
For me, it was actually the half bar before that.
Oh right.
Would I have enough bow left?
Yes.
It's fine if I start here, but sometimes I would go and then suddenly be like, oh no, I didn't use enough. And then you're just here hoping you have enough room. So that's where the lazy cellist actually really kills themselves. You know.
But it's good. It's good to develop those skills, you know, where you're really working with the amount of weight and doing less bow. I mean, certainly I think there's real, like, technical advantages to doing that in the, you know, louder passages, because it does create a very different sound.
Very much so, yeah.
So, props to you.
I also, thanks. Well, let us see how the performance goes. I found two spots very, very interesting with their shifts. So I think it's 41. So placing the note after the harmonic. So to be 100% sure that that D would be the same D as that, often just that shift going from the harmonic to the real note does catch us out if we don't really take it out. that happens twice, and then another similar one, which is another harmonic thing. So how did you approach that shift from the E?
I think that's such a good moment because when I was practicing this, like being a bad cellist and mindfully playing through it, I would get there and I'd automatically go and like cross all the way over, and then I'm like, oh no, you're not meant to do that. You're meant to shift down. And then I started going, right, I'm meant to shift down. And then I did that. And I'm like, no. Popper says, or my addition says, or whatever, to do it on the A string. I'm like, okay, well, I see the advantages of that, for the consistency of sound and different things. But it's really hard for me because earlier in that bar, you're all up here. And then you have to think to go down. So it is a really different, and I think you're quite like squared off to the cello to make those notes work up here. And then you're all of a sudden moving towards a hand position that's slightly more angled. So to be honest, I mean, to practice the shift, I thought like more solid with that thumb on the harmonic. Because I think if it's more harmonic-y, sometimes it can be harder to find that note, although I just hit it, so.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but
so
I don't have any, like, I don't have any really specific advice for that, so why don't you tell me what you were thinking?
Well, all the same things, so I noticed I had to substitute much more than I would have to do if it was a real note. Because, I want to go from here and then be able to actually slide from harmonic level to actual weight level.
You're doing all these string crossings, it's still fortissimo, and you're thinking about the bow placement, moving towards the bridge as you go down the strings, and saving the bow. I mean, I get caught out using way too much bow at the beginning here. I think it's really tempting to want to use half your bow on that shift.
Of course.
But you really need that extra juju for the end in those string crossings.
Yeah, you do, and then not so much weight that you're going to crush the string either. So it's a really fine balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I think that D at 43, I mean, that's where the diminuendo is written. So that in some ways really should be the height of that fortissimo passage.
Yeah, exactly. All the way to the dim word, not start dimming to the dim word.
The old chestnut.
Exactly. That is so funny. Other things that I found myself thinking about. So even in bar 9, the placement of the third finger, so whatever position you get up to, the placement of the third finger and the thumb being very specific. For tuning, that no matter where you were, that was always a consideration. Making sure that sometimes I would have expected the third finger to be a bit higher, which is weird. Right. Or I just would have noticed that I wasn't totally exact at the beginning with that, because I have to adjust my hand a little bit. See the way when you're getting your weight over that finger. So I suppose that sometimes would affect my placement. So I had to be really careful to make sure that it didn't.
I think it's
just something to watch out for.
Yeah, and I think a very good thing to talk about with that, because I have students sometimes when they're doing thumb position, and they get so put off by the fact that when you're changing strings, you do need to change the angle of your arm, I mean, you see people playing, and we don't always do that because we don't always need to use the thumb, but in a passage like that where you need to use the thumb on A and then thumb on the D, you might find a position where all of this works really comfortably and that's in tune. But oftentimes, and again, shape of the hand, all that stuff, a little bit of rotation in your arm is going to facilitate the intonation massively.
Absolutely, because I think often people start at their thumb position, and then, so if I don't move and I do this, there's absolutely no way that there's the same amount of weight on this finger as there is on this finger if I don't get over on top of it. You have to have the weight up and over the same way you would have to in any other position. So that's very important as we go down. You can see my wrist actually comes up and over, especially for the C string in all of those
Yeah.
places. So one to watch out for. You have a little bit of fluidity, that you're not always stuck in one position. Weight over the
Yeah.
finger, let it happen. Like a crab, I suppose.
And it's planning too, isn't it? I mean, like I'm not sure in this study, but there's definitely repertoire where you're doing some string crossy thumb stuff, and you have to make a decision. Like, are you gonna, keep your thumb over the D and the G if you're going down for one note or something, and see, or are you gonna move over? It's all that planning that you would do with any other fingerings and all of that. But
Exactly.
I think,
Yeah.
I think the one thing I've always thought about this, but doing all these poppers, what it's really kind of drilled into my playing even more is just how important it is to, as you were saying, with that third finger and thumb relationship, like in all of this stuff, it's how you like pull away the curtain of how to do all of this thumb position stuff really well, is having that sense that this is a block, this is always reliable.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I've got my thumb and my third finger, I'll get all those other notes in tune, just getting used to that structure.
Exactly. I love that. Yes.
Anything else burning? Any other burning desires?
The very last bit, I suppose, is did you do the Barenreiter edition?
I did,
Where-
yes.
It's such an unusual shift, 2 to 3.
Oh, right. I did not do the 2 to 3 shift, I have to say.
So
Yeah.
I just think it's so unusual, because I would never do that.
Maybe I did. Yeah. I did actually, yeah, because of the 3 that you did before.
So for me, I'm used to my octave shifts, that kind of idea. But if you're going from 2, essentially you're going, it's a 7th, depending on what kind of a 7th you want to have, which is very different to what you expect. So for me, that was good practice. Just very interesting. I did definitely practice the next bit in rhythms. Very important for me at this speed to register where the semitones are.
Yeah.
In
Absolutely.
basic skills for cello, just so that when it's going really fast and my brain doesn't have time to get involved, I just know, I have like a little arrow I write in with the semitone.
Yeah.
Just so that I know my position straight off the bat and I don't have to think about it.
And I'm so glad you said that, because people, again, not having the brain involved is a real thing. And guess what? Like, sometimes there's just too much going on, and you need those, you need to be able to rely on things that aren't just like your concentration on that, because your brain just can't, it's like a computer processor that just can't handle all the information sometimes.
Sometimes. And, it should be 100% on your piece all the time. But let's say it's not at this particular
I'm not
moment.
saying your brain, by the way, I'm just saying brains in
I
general.
know. I am just laughing at the fact that the only reason I do it, I know I've practiced them, I know where the notes are, but I do it because there will be no doubt when I come to it where those semitones are. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me, I think.
Cool.
I like
Shall
it.
we have a go? Is it that
Yes.
time?
Is it-
wait until you get your goodies in. It's great. Oh, fabulous. I could just imagine myself sitting in some salon with Chrysler and like listening to this music, turn of the century. It was so beautiful. I mean, the sound you have for that is just like absolutely the perfect sound. It's so focused, but totally, you know, beautiful and luscious and grazioso, and
thank you.
the timing of your shifts. Yeah, no, beautiful.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
always glad.
It's a lovely one.
I'm always glad when you play first, because it inspires me a lot.
Oh, how lovely. Well, you know, right back at you, my dear. Little things in there, and you did super harmonics all the way up to the tip. That was it. Absolutely. I love it.
Yes. I did think in the split second before I got up there, I'm like, should I try the thumb thing? Shall I try the thumb behind? But I'm totally going to practice some stuff like that. Because it makes so much sense from a, you know, physicality standpoint.
Yeah.
To do
Big
that.
time. Very exciting. Well,
Yeah. Go us. Woohoo.
I love it.
I'm going to have to make the woohoo. I'm going to have to make that a weekly thing. The high five business.
Get
I know. Woohoo. Go us. Anyway,
we need costumes or something, but yeah.
Halloween cello power in October.
Wow.
It's happening. We're gonna need to plan to do a really spooky chromatic one. That
I
week.
love it. That is forward thinking. It's good.
I know.
Right.
I know. Look at this. Cool. Lovely. Yay! We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.